Welcome. This is a Thursday night workshop, advanced workshop, meant to follow up newcomers on Wednesday nights, for one thing, and to allow you folks an opportunity to come for a little more intensive kind of focus on the various details, particularly of Zazen. But we do some other things like walking and chanting and so forth. And we have some fifth Thursdays. We talk about some of the healing and sleeping kind of promoting well-being things that are associated with Zen. Um, this is third, right? Third Thursday, I believe. So today is mindful attention tonight, and we will be working through some special exercises that are connected with meditation. The Shurangama Sutra is, according to Okumura Roshi, is authentic. It's extant in China only, apparently the version we have of it. And each Thursday morning, I am reviewing Shurangama Sutra with one of our members in Birmingham, Alabama. He's a drummer, happens to be a drummer, a musician, and IT guy, works in social media, some level of programming and all that. So Shurangama Sutra, if you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's very interesting. The new translation. The first I read was by Charles Luke, L-U-K, a monk, and I think it was a monk. And it was startling how descriptive it was. It describes the things that happen in meditation. I hadn't come across any other teaching in the history like that. And there's a new BDK translation. BDK is an outfit that provides free downloadable translations of these teachings, and they publish books which are also free. They're distinguished by their green and yellow covers, and they have the Buddha wheel on the cover. So if you're interested in the Shurangama Sutra, send me an email, and I will send you this BDK translation that PJ and I are going through. It's extremely interesting. You find the very first version of many of the teachings that we take for granted now. Some of Dogen's teachings, the Chinese teachings, you find their first expression in the Shurangama Sutra. So we did a retreat here many years ago based on the Shurangama. One of the things Buddha does, is attributed to Buddha, goes through each of the senses, eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, and so forth, and then the mind, illustrating the nature of the senses as being an analogy for the nature of the mind. And so we did a retreat here once where we blindfolded ourselves for one of the periods, sat meditation blindfolded, got up and did walking meditation blindfolded. We plugged up our ears so you couldn't hear anything, sat a period like that, and did walking meditation. That was the noisiest period. And one, for taste, we put a piece of hard candy in your mouth. You couldn't chew it or wiggle it around. You just had to leave it there. So we're experimenting with taste. And for posture, body, tactile, we took one of these cushions and put it on our head. So tonight, what I'm going to ask you to do is do an exercise like this. So at some point, you'll want to find one of these husk-filled cushions that you will use. So the way we approach the senses, as you know, in the Heart Sutra that we chant right after, says no seeing, no feeling, thought, impulse, consciousness. It goes right into the senses. No seeing, hearing, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. Thinking being the sixth sense, according to Buddhism. So the senses are put right up front in the Heart Sutra, which is the central condensed focal sutra of Zen. And they wouldn't be there if they weren't important. And so it says, give an emptiness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind.
Did you miss the most important sense? The incense.
Yeah. Smell and taste, actually, in my first book, The Original Frontier. And by the way, I got a story for you. 5 o'clock, told you about my recording studio. There's a recording studio in Ponce. The guy's called Tech Genius. He does all kinds of computer repair and etc. He does all of our computer work, and he actually builds computers from scratch. He is truly a genius, and he gives classes there. But he also has a studio upstairs where he records sound, and he set up the whole motherboard and all that himself. So I've been the original Frontier. I did my audiobook version of it there, and then the recordings go to a company in Decatur, and they do all the production of the audiobook and distribution of the audiobook. So we we learned a lesson on the first one. We actually had to go back and record the entire book a second time. But the guy who owns the company did not charge me for the second recording because it was a technical mistake on their part. So this time tonight, we're there recording the second to the last chapter in the Razor Blade of Zen, which is my second book. And just as we're getting to the end of these 10 pages, about each page is about 5 minutes of sound. The thunder starts. We just keep recording. We let the thunder come in and be in the background. It was wonderful. Calling down the gods. So we're leaving it in.
You can't even pay for that.
You can't pay for that, but I'm sure people who listen to it when they get to that point, it'll be shocked, toward the end of the book. They'll probably think we faked it. We probably, think we have to tell them, no, this was genuine. So I called Daniel and said, we may not meet tonight because of the weather, but we decided to go ahead. So we're going to do something similar to that tonight, the sensory part of it during our sitting period. And just to remind us, the typical schedule is I expound on the method of Zen till 7:30. Then we take a half hour to do sitting and teisho. So during that half hour, we will do this experiment. But what we're going to do tonight, we're going to do all of them. We're going to plug up the ears, keep the eyes closed. We're going to put on a breathing strip over our nose, which opens up your nostrils for breathing, and we're going to put the cushion on our head. So, the only thing we're not doing, if you want to, you can put something in your mouth, but we're not doing that. Yeah, and we're not burning incense. So the perspective on the breathing, our smelling and tasting is that they're chemical. They're, in a sense, tactile, in the sense that they're chemical. So they pretty much absorb right into the body sensation part. In my first book, I treated these as we confront them in meditation. The first of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind that we confront newcomers is body. Right away, your knee starts hurting, your back starts hurting, your body is resisting, you have physical resistance, right? And once you overcome that, as Matsuoka Roshi says, should be the comfortable way. Once you become comfortable in sitting, then you have all these other barriers that you're confronted with, like falling asleep. So the way we confront them in Zen is usually posture, body first, is where we run into level of difficulty. Then something beyond that, for me, it was vision, because I'm highly trained visually. Daniel's highly trained orally as a musician. So the next one that puts up a lot of resistance might be seeing or hearing. As I said, smelling and tasting sort of are minimal. They come down the line. And the last one that we confront, it could come in second or third, is thinking, right? So for many of us, when we come and sit here, we're sitting and struggling with the pain and the posture, but at the same time, the monkey mind just won't leave us alone. It's saying, what are you doing? This is stupid. You should be out having fun, right? So you can think of this. It usually says eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, seeing, smelling, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. If you look at that, seeing is like the most diaphanous of the senses. It's on the level of light, right? The retina is literally receiving light. And when you step down from that to hearing, it's compression waves in the air or in the water if you happen to be in a swimming pool. So it's on a grosser level of the electromagnetic spectrum. And when you go to smelling and tasting, it's chemical responses and so forth. And then when you go to body sensation, it's sort of the grossest level. It's like gravity, friction, temperature, right? All those compression, all those kinds of dimensions. So then when you get to thinking, you could say it's even more diaphanous or ephemeral than seeing because it's on some level of the formless realm, right? Thoughts are coming and going, and they're, in a sense, like light. They're working on some sort of electrochemical basis through the brain, the nervous system, and all that. But thinking turns out to be the most stubborn. We get to where we can sit comfortably, so we've overcome the body, we've overcome the resistance of the body. But the resistance of the mind is just relentless. It's once we think we've gotten through it, it can come back with a vengeance later in our practice and just drive us crazy. So that's the way I profile the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. They're not so simple as to be that clean and orderly. And especially when we start meditating, we confront them in a different sequence, and then we come back through them again and again. So one way I think about that is Matsuoka Roshi said in the next Tuesday, the last segment of my book study for the national group, it's the last chapter of Heart Sutra by Musang Sunim, very famous Korean master of the Kwanum school. And the last chapter, he has a circular diagram where he talks about starting at this point at 0 and going to 90 degrees, 180, 270. Coincidentally or not, he may have actually been exposed to this. This book was published in 1991. It's a very small book that we're reading, but very dense and very pointed. Matsuoka Roshi has a talk that he gave that he described 360 degrees Zen. He starts at 0 and goes to 90, 180, 270. And they have very similar kind of descriptions of what's going on at that point in your process. And they come to the same sort of conclusion that once you go all the way fully around the circle, you come back to starting point 0, right? So the mountain is, in the beginning, is a mountain. Then the mountain is no longer a mountain. And then once again, the mountain is a mountain. But everything has changed. Or Sensei used also the metaphor of boiling a pot of water. You boil a pot of water, and it's different than it was before it was boiled, but you can't tell, you can't see it. But you can't deny that the boiling has happened. So the boiling is the meditation process we go through. So these analogies are so close and similar. I just wonder if Sangsanim may have come across Mokurai or Kiyosaku and read this fascicle because it's extremely similar. So if you join next Tuesday, that'll be the closing segment on that. You might find it interesting. So if you think, I thought about this and I thought, well, it's not quite so simple as you go from 0 to 90 degrees, which Sensei called kind of like hyper reality, where things get prickly, uncomfortable. You're going through a disorientation process. You're sitting in meditation, and it gets to where you don't like it. It's not really comfortable. At least it may be physically comfortable, but it's not necessarily mentally or emotionally comfortable. And your family may not like it, and your friends may think you're weird, and it also has social dimensions as well. So then that's 90 degrees, and that's where everything starts to disintegrate, fall apart. And he said at 180 degrees, you come to a kind of apprehension of the underlying unity, that there's something about this. He said it's a kind of enlightenment, but you're only halfway around the circle. And he said at 270, and they use different terminology, but Matsuoka, he said, imagination thinking. You have been freed or released from your usual inhibited way of thinking. So some of the analogies or metaphors that Buddha used, like horns on a rabbit, hair on a tortoise, these things become possible in your imagination. You can imagine anything because you've now become uninhibited and freed from conventional ways of thinking at 270 degrees. You're still not back home yet, you know. So then at 360 degrees, everything has come back together, but is again entirely different. So you can see there's not a hair's breadth of difference, as the old expression says, between before enlightenment and after enlightenment. There's nothing you can point to that has actually changed. So it's very interesting to me that these two models, that these two teachers separated by Matsuoka was teaching that in the 60s, and this was in the 90s, so 30 years or so, this exact same model to use to illustrate it. So I invite you to join that Tuesday. Let me get the clock. I'm reading.
Question. So that repeats over and over again.
That's the point I was going to get to. Thank you for anticipating that. And so I think it's not so simple as you go around the circle once, one and done. It's not like that. We continue and we find ourselves in a very uncomfortable realm again, only it's worse than the first time, right? So if you think of the circle and you think of it rotating like that, and you turn it on its side, then you could say, here's 0 degrees, right? Here's 90, here's 180, here's 270, here's 360. So you can see it's a sine wave, right? It's going like this through time, if time, the vector of time is this way. So that is like a drill, right? Drilling for water, deeper and deeper and deeper. So we revisit 90 degrees, prickly, hyper reality, too much, we don't want it, too much for us. We revisit the unity principle all of a sudden, deeper, on a deeper level. We revisit imagination thinking on an even more profound level. And eventually it comes back together again on a much deeper level. So if you think of it like that, there's no end to it. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. It's the same circle, but it's turned on its side. You can see that it's going through time that way. That's what you were getting at, right? Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking. Yeah,
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So that's why we say, Buddha, practice after enlightenment is the expression used for Buddha returning to the cushion after his profound insight at 33 years old, something like that. So let's stop there, pause for a moment, see if anybody has any comments or questions. Close to 7:30.
Yeah, I also heard that if a person gets enlightened, maybe they think that, okay, I made it, and then they go up into a mountaintop and stay.
Yeah.
But
Trip and fall off the mountain.
I heard there was like a person who got enlightened. He was told that now you have to. He was reminded that you've been taught and helped to get enlightened. Now it's your turn to help others.
Turn the wheel. Turn the down wheel.
And at first he thought like, oh, why should I? I don't know. He was enlightened, so he shouldn't have any problems with anything. But when he started to help others, then it made it even better.
Yeah. Dogen makes this point rather assertively that there is no establishment of the Bodhi mind outside the taking on of the Bodhisattva vow. The two are inseparable.
Right. Like one actually should at least start to be a bodhisattva.
And the question arises, and I can't remember where I came across it as bluntly, but it was saying, so what? Then what? After, right? And the answer is nurture it. Nurture it. And this ties into the three minds, the magnanimous mind, the nurturing mind, and the joyful mind. We have the three bodies. We have the Yamanakai, transformation body. We have the Dharmakaya, the essence body, or truth body. We have the Sambhogakaya, the joy body, joy body. The way I think of those is we're all familiar with the Nirmanakaya. This transformation body is the body we're born into. And it is transforming at all times, right? Impermanent, ever changing, and so forth. My sense of the joy body, where the joy comes from, Sambhogakaya, where that arises, is in the synergistic relationship of the Nirmanakaya discovering the Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is the essence body, which is not limited to the limitations of the Nirmanakaya, the body that we're familiar with, that we're born in, that we see as ourself, and separate from everything else. The Dharmakaya is the essence body, which is not separate from everything else. So there is no inside outside. It's all the teachings of Zen, basically. And the coming together of those two in design synergy simply means something like you have a picture in the newspaper, a photograph, right? You look at it and it's a certain amount of information. There's a caption. You look at the caption. The two together have a third meaning that neither of those separately has. So if you only looked at the caption, you'd have that limited information. If you only looked at the picture, you'd have that. And you put the two together, the third level of meaning that comes out of it is called synergistic or synergetic. It comes out of the combination of the two, and it's not in either of the two separately. So if you think of the three bodies that way, and it's not Father, Son, Holy Ghost, it's not like that. If you think of the Nirmanakaya as being the physical, biological body, and you think of the Dharmakaya, the essence or truth body, as that is the conscious body to which we awaken, then the combination of those two, again, has a third new level of meaning, which is joy. It's a joyous occasion or a joyous something like that.
Yeah, I think another way to, I think that's exactly right. But I thought about it with like these bubbles that they have in comics. So they have a
thought bubble, and
yeah,
speech bubbles.
and then you have a contest of what to put in there.
Yeah.
And then one person will win. But it's like
it's the New Yorker cartoon. You mean like the New Yorker cartoon?
Yes.
They show them blank, and you fill them in.
Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
If you just have the text, it's fine.
Yeah.
And just the image, but when you put it together, it's just like it gets a smash hit.
Yep. So that's called synergy in design circles.
Right.
So I think that's the way that works. And then you have the three minds that are sort of parallel to the three bodies. The magnanimous mind, which is all embracing, accepting, not resisting. You have the nurturing mind, which is when, if and when this becomes, you have this sort of realization. So you have what you want. Then the nurturing mind is to help others. It's the bodhisattva vow, or the, desire to share, to propagate this. And you see the suffering of others, and you want to help them. This is the arising or arousal of the bodhi mind, the wisdom mind. And then manifesting that, following through on that, arouses, or from that arises the joyous mind. It's joyful to engage your life in this way. And to some degree, everything we do, music is like this. You're not doing music just selfishly. You're doing music because people engage with it, and the audience likes it, right? And it's not entirely selfless.
Mm-hmm.
So we live in this realm where the poem says, in this world of suchness, there is neither self nor other than self. Come into harmony with this reality. Just simply sit when doubt arises. Just simply say, not to. In this not to, nothing is extra, nothing is excluded, something like that. So it says transcending the self and seeing that there's neither self nor other than self. It isn't really you become a great person or anything. It's just that you see the reality as it is.
So I'm not sure I got all these words accurate, but if you compare this caption and a news article,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you get the third thing. Is that similar? You said one is the reality. What was that? The reality was the something at 5. But anyway, so one is the reality, and the other one uh, is that you see the reality. Is that what the other things?
Mhm.
So if I look at at the flower over there, the flowers over there, and then my mind sees the flower, and then when the mind sees the flower, or the eyes see the flower, and the flower is over there, it's really there. Then a third thing kind of appears.
And it applies to duality, non-duality, and transcendent reality. So the three natures of Vasubandhu, for instance, is the Yogacara school. He has the imaginary, the co-arisen, and the complete. Something like complete. I can't remember exactly how to define it, but the imaginary is our concept of reality. So we have a concept of the flower, or we have a concept of that sculpture, whatever it is. There's a concept of it. That, according to Buddhism, that's actually imaginary, because that's not what it is. That can't be what it is, what you imagine it to be. And yet it's real enough. I mean, that's conventional wisdom. That's the way we operate on a social level.
Yeah.
We all agree on laws. We all agree on language. We call that black. We call that red, and so forth. Everybody agrees, or language won't work, right? So this on the social level. So the call arisen is Buddhist 12-fold chain. It's actually that thing, that quote flower, is carved out of mahogany. If you scratch through the gold surface paint, you'll find it's mahogany underneath, and it's carved by some artisan, right? And so it comes from a tree, right? And some artisan takes it and does the work and translates it into this, and then they build it. So you begin to break it apart into all of its causality, all the mutual causes and conditions that brought it to be what it is. And that's the co-arisen nature of it. The imaginary nature of it is what we imagine it to be, and we all agree. When you say the flower on the altar, I know what you mean. So it has a reality. It has that reality. The third level is the complete reality.
But that reality is imaginary.
The first one is called imaginary.
Right.
Because it isn't complete.
Right.
It's one-sided. Yeah. The other side, the middle ground is that it's co-arisen. Part of its transition into non-duality is that you begin to see that it's impermanent, it's imperfect, it's ever-changing. You know, all the teachings of dukkha, that at the same time that it has this present form and appearance, it is ever-changing. It wasn't this way before. All the constituents that make up one of my paintings and one of my works of art used to be a piece of mineral called chalk. We call it chalk, right? It used to be a cotton that was made into paper, right? Or a fiber of some kind that was made into paper. So the way we identify form and appearance is real enough, but the underlying dynamic of it is that it's co-arisen, the causes and conditions that brought it into being. So that's the middle ground where you begin to see that, oh yeah, causality. Nothing is the same as it was. Nothing will be the same as it is. And then the third level of that is called the real, or the non-dual, or the complete. Means that in that context, both the absolute and the relative aspects of that are also complementary to each other. So the truth is like the yin-yang circle. It's outside the circle, seeing the circle as the yin-yang of things, complementary, changing and ever evolving in time. Quite stunning, really. I mean, it's overwhelming. It's beyond understanding. We can talk about it, point at it. So the nurturing mind tries to help people with that dilemma, the horns of the dilemma, the cosmic catch-22 that we're faced with, and trying to apprehend this reality that Buddhism points at. Our struggles to articulate it are just that, trying to translate it into dualistic language. And yet we're all freely operating on this premise without even knowing it. So there's nothing really to worry about. Hope is that eventually it will become clear. In music, we say straight ahead and strive for tone. And then we say straight ahead and strive for clarity. Frustrating part of it is that we try to get at it in concepts, try to get at it in words, and it just doesn't work. It's my own tail. Good enough? Anything from
I
you?
think that the worst thing is when you're doing something. Let's say that you are building something. You're building a table. You're at a sewing machine or something. Then you see the sewing machine, and you have a perception of it.
And it works, by the way. It functions as a sewing machine. It does its job.
Right. But even when you do something and it needs your attention, sometimes for me anyway, I start to think about other things, such as, oh, did I remember to pay that bill? Or
Yeah.
my boss, he wasn't very nice when he said this or that. Then I'm not present. I'm not even in a situation like that. Sometimes I'm not here and now. I'm somewhere else.
In your mind, at least, you are actually present. You cannot ever not be present.
Yes, yeah, I'm present with my boss and my bills, but I'm in front of the sewing
And
machine.
your attention is distracted.
But I've been thinking about this when I do something to try to do one thing at a time. So I try to, if I'm by a sewing machine and building something, then I try to only do that. And then if I start to think about the bills, then I try to, I don't know what you can do, but I mean,
One thing I think you can do is embrace the vacillation. The vacillate from this to that and back,
yes,
back and forth, just as we do the rocking motion when we sit down.
yeah,
So if you can accept that the mind also has a vacillation like that, it's
right,
naturally going from high to low, from manic to depressive at the most extremes and so forth. From frustration, the Tibetans say the last vacillation is from exhilaration, excitement that something may happen, and weariness, exhaustion, because you're so tired, right? So you're vacillating between the state of ready to give up and just, oh, something might happen. Vacillating between extremes. And that's simply the way the mind works.
yeah,
So if you're having a lot of anxiety, you could take some comfort from the fact that anxiety is on the same spectrum as serenity. You can't have anxiety without serenity. You can't have serenity without anxiety. They define each other.
right, yeah. And
So
sometimes you're more anxious.
you're over on this end, but it's comforting to know that there's another end. And the doctrine of the means says you have to go to the extreme to come back to the middle.
But that's the thing. I think that is kind of when you're agitated, and then you think about the bills, you think about the other things while you're doing this building. But there are other times where you're doing this thing, and you're completely in there.
In the flow.
Yeah. And it just that's when you get everything gets done faster and it feels better too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a different place.
It is wonderful. But it's Zen is takes that and says, you know, in the arts or rather sports, especially extreme sports, bungee jumping,
Yeah.
all of the extremes where you push yourself to extremes, deep sea diving, and all that. You push yourself to this level that kayaking, for instance, one of our first Dharma talks, a guy out of Huntsville, who was a kayaker. He's also a scientist who worked on gravity switches for NASA. And he said he gave a talk. I asked him to give a talk as part of his initial training. So he gave a talk on kayaking. He said, in kayaking, you can't be here where you are. You have to be down there, down the rapids. You know, because if you're not down there, you're gonna crash. You have to be way ahead of where you are, and you're moving so fast. There's no time to think. Well, that was the nature of the talk. I said, and so my point is that when you're sitting in Zazen, it's even more extreme because you're sitting still. So you're amping up the velocity by sitting stock still. We all know that we're moving 1,000 miles an hour to the east while we're sitting here. That's the rotation of the Earth, right? So nothing is sitting still. So the most extreme position to take is to sit still because it's not possible. Welcome. So you want to do the experiment?
Yeah.
You'll each need one of these. Let me show you how to do this before we do it. This is the thing, shutting down the experiment. You want to take the posture where you straighten up and you're in your best vertical posture. You pulling back on your head, stretching the back of your neck. You can feel that strength in the back of the neck. You can feel it in the arch. And you, as much as possible, that becomes one unified, like the column of the holding up the ceiling. Matsuoka Roshi said, when your posture is approaching a stage of perfection, it will feel as if you're shoving your head against the ceiling. So it's a feeling of immense stability or solidity where there's a weight on your head. We do that literally here. We take this and we put it on your head. So you want to be in the posture first as much as you can and put one of these on your head and feel the balance. Remember how they used to have women walk around with books on their head to learn formal walking. We can try walking with this on our head too. But for now, I want you just to sit with this on your head and then do the rocking motion. You have to be careful and don't drop the cushion. Do the rocking motion. So all it's doing is giving you a reference point up here of a weight against your body, which you usually don't feel, right? You literally begin to feel exactly what Sensei said. So during this half-hour period, you'll sit with this on your head. I'll also ask you to put one of these breathing strips over your nose so it opens up your nostrils as much as possible. And then I'm going to ask you to plug up your ears so that you listen to your breath. Open that. Take one. Take two of these. Don't eat them. One for each ear. You want to find a place around the perimeter. There's one of the soft cushions in the middle over there. That's my favorite, the purple one. And find a place sitting facing the wall. So for this half-hour period, we will sit with this on your head, earplugs, drip on your nose, and with your eyes closed. Okay? Is everybody cool enough? We don't have to turn the AC on. I'd like to keep it silent. Okay. All right. You might want to dry your nose with a Kleenex or napkin because those won't stick very well if your
Can you get
nose is too old.
Yeah, I got you.
So this is a Sharinama exercise. We wouldn't call it Zazen, but we are taking the Zazen posture. We will be doing the exaggerated breathing now that we're wearing a nose strip. How do you put these on?
That's what I was going to.
Oh, you've never used them? Okay.
Take the backer off.
You peel the backer off and you put it over your nose right here on the bridge so that That's why your nostrils don't want to be greasy. The ends of the strip touch this part of your right outside your nostrils and lift it up to open your nostrils. So your nostril,
Oh, it opens the,
yeah, it opens up because it has a hard strip. It'll pull up. Yeah, how that opens up. Yeah, yeah. So it should open your. If it's too far up on your nose, it won't do it on the bone. You want it down here in the cleft,
Just before the bone.
just underneath the bone. Yeah. Okay. I know it seems a little weird. It's going to get weirder even. So then plug up your ears. Find a soft cushion.
Okay. Thanks.
Find a place to sit facing the wall. We'll turn the lights out. And what time is it? So this is a way of paying attention to off their breath attention.
I can feel it up. Yeah.
Here's one for somebody to have. It's a really good one. It's a little small.
The edge, right there. Mm-hmm.
So here are three will be fine. Thank you. Find a place facing the wall. Bring your cushion with you. Once you get settled into the posture,
Maybe like that.
put it on top of your head. Take the posture as you usually do,
Thank you.
and then after you feel like you're in, do the locking motion, all that.
Just gotta
Once you feel
squeeze
your
it.
proper posture,
You squeeze it? Yeah,
put the
just
soft cushion
yeah,
right on your head.
it'll
And
expand.
then I would suggest you do the rocking motion again,
It's great for me.
without
I have
without dropping.
nasal passage is getting inflamed. Take my nose.
All right. Yeah, sure. Close your eyes. This one's listen to your breath.
You got almost there.
Yeah, two. Thank you. Extremism, the pursuit of moderation, is no vice. I'd have to adjust the earplugs again and again, pushing them in. Keep your eyes closed. Continue with eyes closed, maintaining the posture while I come and give you the stick. No think about. I can tell newcomers when we do walking meditation, it may have been one of the weirdest things you've ever done, but it can get a lot weirder. I want to express my gratitude for your trust in me that you will go through this, because I tell you, you go through this, or suggest that you might want to go through this. Let's rejoin as you're able. So what we did tonight is attention, and we used some when you do a presentation, you use visual aids, right? So tonight we use some attention aids to pay a different kind of attention to our senses, which is a very basic part of the methodology or method of Zen. So let's rejoin as you're able, and let's just report out on your experience. Any comments or questions you might have? This was unzazen. This was not zazen. Unzazen. Next week we will do the walking meditation. Christian.
You take the nose strip off. How do you take the nose strip off?
It was almost clean. It's a good piece of nose strip.
Yep.
Good quality.
They're great if you have allergies.
Want to take one to try tonight when you're sleeping to help you sleep? You've got trouble breathing.
No.
Okay.
I'll try
If you do,
to.
these work well for swimming as well. They soak up some of the water and keep the water out of the ears. The Kirigama retreat, we also did blindfold. We did an extreme blindfold where you couldn't really see anything instead of just closing the eyes. And during the earplug part, we did walking meditation. It was like kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. The sound of your body hitting the floor is amazingly loud. No, don't try this at home.
Yeah. So I didn't have very much experience with the I don't think the nose strips. I mean, we're all built differently, so they didn't really do very much for me. My nasal passages are pretty open naturally, so I didn't really get a whole lot of difference there. What I noticed the most was with the weight of the pillow.
It's got to be what? It's less than 10 pounds, right?
Yeah,
It's just that little bit of difference.
it's a big difference, and so it started pulling me around, and when I pushed up, it stopped. So if I push into the posture more
Mm-hmm.
with a little more effort, it would stop, but then you sort of go back into the experience, and then you forget to keep pushing, and then you keep sort of.
You feel when you're slightly off a whole lot more than if you don't have that weight on top of you.
Yeah.
Your head has to weigh at least 10 pounds, right?
And the eyes closed is a different thing too.
Yeah. It's recommended in mindfulness meditation from what I could tell. I read one book on it, and he kept saying, keep your eyes closed while you're meditating, and you have to ask, how mindful can that be? If you're excluding vision, doesn't make any sense. This is moving toward Mike Goldman in his Sunday talk. He said this was the closest thing they had to sensory deprivation back in the day, back in India, back in China, and so forth. So with this, we're moving a little even closer to sensory deprivation, or putting ourselves in a bind kind of thing where no escape, This becomes oppressive at one point where you have that weight bearing down on you.
What does the stick do?
The Kyosaku, the way Matsuo Hiroshi described, he said it blows thoughts out of the mind, tension out of the body.
So I'm not supposed to move or do anything different. Is that an indication that the shoulders are in the wrong position?
No. It's just usually it's requested. You hold your hands up, and if you're feeling any strain, mental distraction, just discomfort, just out of balance, out of whack, you press the stick and come around, whack, whack, and
It's a reset, maybe.
it's kind of like a reset. And the strike goes, you can feel it in your shoulders. If you can ask for it again later. Typically, if you do in the same session, ask for it again, they'll strike a little harder. So we train on 4 levels of intensity: 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4 is for a big guy like me. You can whack me as hard as you want; it's not going to hurt me. And because I'm experienced. But if there's a young woman, small-shouldered, you know,
All or muscle, presume.
yeah, you're very careful about how hard you hit somebody. The stick is curved.
Do you always strike the same place in that muscle, or is there
Yep.
different places?
In Rinzai, you strike down the back. We can do it. I can show that with Dave because I know it helps him. Just bring as far down as you can. So we strike down the back like this not on the spine, but off to the side. So it's getting pretty close to the kidneys there, and you have to be a little careful with it.
Because it causes the muscle to contract, maybe.
Lift it up a little.
It's like a shiatsu, like an instant hard massage.
So it contracts and then lets go.
Yeah, so it kind of shocks the body. Acupuncture works that way too. When they put the needles in, they run the electricity through. You can do thumbs up or thumbs down for it to be faster and harder, or slower and softer. And what it does is it causes all the muscles through the back. They put like 100 needles in your back to respond. And the guy who took us to acupuncture in Nagano said it always makes them feel light after it's light. So it's just flexing the muscles like that again and again and again. So when you're done, they're kind of relaxed because it squeeze, relax, relaxation response. So this does something similar. It's radiused on this side. This is the side you strike with. So I always put the stamp and the dedication on the back side. So you can't make the mistake of hitting somebody with this side, which could then cause bruises. And you will get a kind of a welt sometimes if you do it a lot, but it really can't hurt you.
You know what electrolysis machine is?
Say it again.
Electrolysis machine in massage therapy. They put these little electrodes on the muscles, and it just stimulates the muscle. The back. It's just the same idea.
Yeah, so the muscle must contract and release, something like that. Called the blow of compassion. As I said, if you're alive, you must feel something.
But that weight from the pillow sort of forces. But in my world, I call it iterations. So a lot of the problem solving that I do is rooted in. I get people in their business life that get stuck as they're going through things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that usually gets me either hired or fired very quickly is to explain to clients and businesses that they need to be failing.
Yeah.
And that we want failure, that we're not in this to avoid failure. We're in this to keep going and to finish the loop and to finish the iteration, because that's where the learning actually comes in.
There's an old Chinese saying that Dogen quoted often: fall down 7 times, get up 8. And why they say 8 instead of get up 7, it's kind of like, I think you can figure that out for yourself. And he also said the bullseye depends on the 100 misses.
But if they refuse to fail, then I won't work with them.
That's right.
Because they don't have the courage to fail, and you have to have the courage to fail to keep going.
That's right. But you set up the parameters as much as you can that you can recover from the failure. So, and the key thing, like built-in obsolescence, used to be a thing in product design. When software started coming out, it was built in. Version zero point 0 is buggy as hell, right? And we're using our end users to feed back to us to bring out version 0.1, which has debugged a lot of the things. So that was the ultimate, not exactly built-in obsolescence, partially built-in obsolescence, but also understanding that this is a collaboration with your client base. They're feeding back to you the problems. They're helping you design it. Right. That was a principle. That was part of my master's thesis. That was the design of a company that I worked with. That I moved to Atlanta with, interfacing with end users all the way along to mitigate against the 80% failure rate of most new products.
But everything that we were discussing in the first part of the session carries forward into finance as well.
Right.
We in financial theory we have, and particularly in valuation, when you start to take disparate pieces and you add them together, synergies is a real thing. And when you have a group of equipment, for instance, if you're in the construction business and you have earth movers and you have dump trucks and you have one thing and it's worth that when you have just the equipment, but it's worth a lot more when you have 20 employees that have CDL driver's license that know how to operate the equipment.
Right.
And then it's worth a lot more after you've been in business for 10 years and you have a customer list of people who regularly order from you. And so when you take you can value all of those components separately, but when you add them together, they're actually worth more than just the sum.
You say the same thing for costs. Costs also have this opportunity cost and so forth. The true cost of something is really difficult to calculate, and most of the factors aren't factored in. And that's what we're seeing with climate change. Basically, one of the true costs of the automobile running on gasoline is climate change. The expenses that we have with the forest fires and the flooding and all this stuff, that's all part of the true cost of what led to this, but it's never factored in.
Yeah, the abstract piece is really, it gets in the accounting world, you call it intangibles, intangible assets, because it's abstract, it's not physically real. But you can get very theoretical and complex, and those are the higher level of.
How did we get here from me hitting you with a stick?
Well, it comes back around to the fact that you have your framework for it from design, but we also leverage off of the same basic concepts when we take them into the finance and accounting discipline as well.
And there is such a thing as hitting somebody with a stick in finance.
Yeah. Or throwing equipment through the window.
Yeah.
I could show you photos. That happens.
So, Cyrus, anything further?
Well, the Kawasaki stick, I was in a big discussion in my head, and it was very important.
In your head?
And then it came a stick. And it just flied away. I don't even remember what I was thinking about. No, so it worked perfectly.
You can try this at home. You can take as many of these as you want.
But I think in the beginning, because I've never had a pillow on my head before, and also
We look like a bunch of turbans or something. Who are the people aware of that kind of head gear?
Seeks.
I was thinking,
Middle East somewhere.
Seeks.
Sikhs, yeah, we look like a bunch of Sikhs.
going to fall down? No, it's rock solid up there. I was wiggling. It's
just that little pressure coming from up above down on the system.
Yeah.
It's there anyway. The gravity is one directional. Gravity's not working that way. But just a little bit of extra weight, exaggerates it so you can feel the movement, the adjustment of the spine. You can feel it so much more crisply and cleanly at every level. When we do the walking meditation, you'll see that even more.
And then the earbuds, I think it was in combination with the pillow on the head and the earbuds. I could hear my heart pulsate. I can never hear it otherwise. I mean, I can
You can hear your what?
heart.
Yeah, yeah. And that was part of the fun, and also be able to hear your breath. Usually we don't.
Yeah.
We've adapted to our breath. We actually hear it.
Yes.
But when you put the earplugs in, it exaggerates it.
It's the breath and the heartbeat. And so I just try to meditate as normal. Uh, but the thing was, it reminded me of the first time I came here, or the first time I even meditated, or the first time I meditated outdoors. The first time you do anything, I have some type of like a fear. It's like, oh, is this really good for the back? Or
Yeah, yeah.
it's like I can hear the heart beating. Maybe it sounds like something is wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is
Could this be harmful?
Right. Uh, but uh, uh, but I think that it's it's connected with so it's called the Zen Mind, the Beginner's Mind. It's a book title.
Shoshin means beginner's mind. We
Right.
we enter Zazen every time with a fresh mind. And that's the attitude. That's an attitude adjustment. Doesn't matter what happened last time.
But I think that maybe I don't do that all the time. So sometimes I just like, oh, I got to go and meditate now, otherwise I never get it done. And I just run there. And
You'll never get it done. Take my word for that.
Yeah. So, but so this was kind of like a opposite experience of that, but it all felt completely different.
So if you take what we did tonight as it was, I directed it, right? And this comes from my past experience, but you can take the same approach in your own practice.
Yeah.
You're redesigning your practice all the time to incrementally improve it. And what that means specifically is really up to you. When I say we reinvent Zen, that doesn't mean we make it up. It is a real thing that we've inherited from the ancestors, but we have to reinvent it in the sense of rediscovering it for ourselves, what they were pointing at and what they were actually doing. We can't do what they did. We're not them, right? But we can take the same approach, develop a different attitude about it. And I think it all hinges on creativity, being open, creativity of mind. And creativity is sometimes described as making the familiar strange. It's as simple as the beer and car commercials during the Super Bowl. You know, people tune in to watch the commercials as much as the game. And you just watch to see what the advertising agencies did with beer this time or what they did with cars.
Oh,
That's where the creativity is. It's the same old car, it's the same old beer.
they renew
Yeah.
every year. They renew the commercial.
Yeah, and they win awards and all this. So if you think of it that way, it's every time you do Zazen, yes, it is the same, but the creativity comes in your attitude about it and how you design it, how you invent it, or how you reinvent it, and what you rediscover in it each time. So it's these techniques, which are artificial, you could say, are attention grabbers or attention. You know, they're like, as I said, visual aids. They're attention aids. If you're making a presentation, you put up charts and things, and you could say all that, but it's not going to be as nearly as effective as the person seeing the chart. That they can see what you're talking about. But these types of creative techniques that we use to enhance our approach to the practice doesn't change Zen. It doesn't change Zazen. It just says, here's not Zazen, do this, and then you'll know the difference, right? Or sit with your eyes closed, then you'll know the difference. But we recommend sitting with your eyes open. But no harm, no foul. Sit with your eyes closed. Just see what happens, right? Close when you inhale, open when you exhale. Try anything, to get at the root of how and why we do this the way we do it. Why do we sit still? Try moving.
Yeah.
Can't have anything to add.
I think like having the weight on my head. At first, it was like painful.
Mhm.
Um,
Irritating it.
yeah, like I still kind of feel it on top of my head. Um, but when it started to like kind of like wasn't like super painful, but it was uncomfortable. It started to like panic, like, oh no, I'm gonna be here for 30 minutes. I better get used to this. You know? And I'm
It was
like,
only 25. It was 25.
yeah. But it kept spinning and doing that, and
Yeah.
eventually I just tried to focus on my breath, and I noticed that my breath was like short, but I didn't try to control it. I just let it be what it was. And then when you hit me with the stick, it was like my breath just instantly, like I didn't feel like I needed to breathe. Just totally slowed down. Um, and there was music playing in my head the whole time.
I noticed with the earplugs and the weight, I could certainly feel my heartbeat a lot stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and I seem to feel it more in my head than in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you feel the pulse throughout the body. You have some signals, but again, subliminally, brain shuts it off. You just don't feel it.
Yeah, I felt it in my ears, like my heartbeat in my ears.
It could be the plugs, the pressure from
Yeah.
the plugs, and it's just changing just enough that you get a little look into. Now you have a benchmark to compare Zazen to. Zazen, we don't plug up the ears. Zazen, we don't close the eyes. Zazen, we don't put something on our head. Oh, I'm fine.
For the 10 minutes estimating.
I was worried about your back a little bit.
But then with the pressure on the compression on my head, that started to cause back pain. And then as that increased, I could feel my heart rate increase. And I could feel it in my right. You know, nowhere else. So I kept adjusting this side, so hopefully I would hear it on both sides. We'll sense it on both sides rather. But just my right ear for dominant.
Apparently, there's a lot of difference between the ears. I'm losing hearing in this ear, but not in this ear. It seems Mike said he was completely deaf in this ear. So the left ear seems to be favored, or you call it favored. Well, good. Okay. Anything else?